Hello, Tri-Cities, and welcome to the 2020 Candidate Forum, the only region-wide, business-focused candidate forum in the Tri-Cities, brought to you by the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce. In this forum, we'll be hearing from the candidates running for Washington State House of Representatives in the 8th Legislative District, Position 2. I'm Tracy Dial, news anchor for NBC Right Now. I'm pleased to be with you. Early voting starts as ballots begin to be sent out in mid-October. Of course, Election Day is on Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you for joining us to hear the candidates' thoughts on issues that matter to all of us in the Tri-Cities. And now a message from President and CEO of the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce, Lori Matson.
As the foremost advocate and voice for business, the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce leads by advancing policies and positions that strengthen, preserve, and promote a thriving business climate, economy, and quality of life. The 2020 candidate forums are designed to highlight how candidate positions integrate with local business priorities. I'd like to take a brief moment to thank the Chamber's Board of Directors and Local Government Affairs Committee for their leadership in supporting our advocacy efforts. I'm especially pleased and grateful for the support of the candidate forum sponsors, Cascade Natural Gas, GISA Credit Union, JLH Group, and Hayden Homes. And last but not least, a very special thanks to our local news partners for collaborating on this project. Your time, talent, and expertise are valued and truly appreciated.
Thank you, Lori. As a proud Tri-City and myself, I am so pleased to be a part of this and to become a more well-informed voter with all of you here today. So now to the format. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening and closing statements. The candidates will be asked the same questions. Response time for each question is limited to 2 minutes. Time limit reminders will appear on screen at 10 seconds remaining, and if necessary, when time is up. Please finish your thought at that time. And since this is a forum, candidates will not be provided a rebuttal time. Now we are ready to get started. Let's begin by introducing, in alphabetical order, the two candidates in the race for Washington State House of Representatives, Legislative District 8, Position 2. The incumbent is Representative Matt Boehnke, and the challenger is Larry Stanley. So welcome, and thank you both so much for taking the time to be with us today. So if you're ready, let's get started to go. So as mentioned, opening statements are going in alphabetical order. So Representative Boehnke, you're up first. You have 1 minute.
Thanks, Tracy, and a big thanks to the Tri-City Regional Chamber for hosting this event and those citizens who are online with us today. My name is Matt Boehnke, and I'm the Republican candidate for District 8, Position 2, and I humbly ask for your vote. I'm a local candidate product of the Kennewick School District and a graduate of Eastern Washington University. Upon graduation, I left to serve active duty at the U.S. Army as a helicopter pilot and cyber expert for over 21 years. My wife of over 30 years allowed me the opportunity to return home to where we both grew up to raise our children. I immediately went to work for the Corps of Engineers, Energy Northwest, and settled in my position I love at Columbia Basin College. Our highest priority is the fiscal health of the 8th District to open our society as quickly and safely as we can. When elected, I pledge to listen to citizens and local business leaders and take appropriate actions to achieve the collective good. Having worked with culturally diverse groups while deployed throughout the world, I have the demonstrated leadership with integrity that is needed now more than ever. And my three priorities today will be discussing education, energy, and the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Boehnke. Mr. Stanley, you're up next.
Thank you, Tri-City Chamber, and everyone involved for this time. I am running for Washington Legislative District Position 8, Position 2. And as you can tell, I'm an average citizen. I grew up in Richland and graduated Hanford High School, went to California for education, and became a pastor, became a teacher in Asia, and an entrepreneur for a while. And then now I manage a winery out here on Red Mountain, and I love the Tri-Cities. I wanted to come back here. We are a vital area, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Are you guys ready to jump right into the questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So a coin toss just prior to taping has determined that Mr. Boehnke will answer the first question, and then it will alternate who goes first each time. So Matt, you are up first. Question number 1. This year has been like no other. Our state has been struggling with the coronavirus, economic turndown, severe unemployment, civil unrest, and catastrophic wildfires. How should the legislature address the gaping hole in the state budget?
Well, thanks for the question, Tracy. And that's the biggest important one that everybody talks about. I meet with citizens on the day-to-day basis, my neighbors, my friends. Everybody asks me, what are we going to do? We immediately went into action when it happened in April, and we tried to build together coalitions in our partnerships locally, regionally, and around the state to see what we can do to make sure where citizens are safe first and foremost. Secondly is really to see the recovery of our businesses, get people back to work. And we're still in the process of looking at where we can leverage federal funding, state funding, and look at grants in areas that we can see that mitigation efforts in place with all businesses, and really to restart our economy. And that's what we need to do. And aiming at individuals that we can see that we can generate that economy back together, reopen our schools, and leverage these. But again, to provide clear guidance and leadership throughout this is someone who needs to be in charge and someone who can be transparent and accountable to the people. And I believe I'm that person to provide that clear guidance. From my military history and background of having gone through crises like this, I believe it's kind of in our wheelhouse. And what we've done in the past is have that measured planning, working together as collaborations and partnerships throughout our city and our region to bring that voice to the state. And sometimes leadership is hard to do and make these tough decisions. But it's important to me to still stay in touch with the citizens of Kennewick and the Tri-Cities to make sure that voice is heard in Olympia, not just with the governor's staff, but also agency leaders who are there that are unelected and seem to be out there doing the things they need to do, but we need to hold them accountable as well. And my recommendations would be to tighten up some of the budgets. We need to make sure we can look at areas that are not as priority as we need to look at nowadays, and really support our small local businesses and get them up and running as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boehnke. Mr. Stanley, question number 1. This year has been like no other. Our state has been struggling with the coronavirus, economic turndown, severe unemployment, civil unrest, and now catastrophic wildfires. How should the legislature address the gaping hole in the state budget?
This is a very difficult situation for the budget, for the legislature. When you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, the Democrats don't want to cut anything, understandably, especially since the majority of it is education, healthcare, and social services and protection and so forth. And the Republicans don't want to raise taxes. Understandable. No one wants to pay more. I'm with Matt in regards to protecting small businesses. We want to see growth there. There's so many areas that we probably could save money, but overall, there's still not going to be, if we went over every budget, I seriously doubt we would be able to save enough to make a dent in the gap. So we're probably going to have to bite the bullet and raise a little bit of taxes somewhere, probably on the top end of the spectrum, because we don't want to hurt the small businesses and we don't want to hurt average people. And we're going to have to make some tough choices on budgets. It's going to be unpopular, but that's why we are placed in leadership, is to make those tough choices, to ignore the special interest to a point when the facts say otherwise. And I'm with the majority of people who are tired of the two main parties being basically guided by special interests. And that's why I'm running under the Alliance Party. I want to be completely transparent budget for all the people, not hide it at all. So that's how I would go about it.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. And Mr. Stanley, you'll get to go first on question number 2. Question number 2 is, if you had the opportunity to change the B&O tax without lowering or eliminating it, what changes would you make and why?
Well, I have to fill out the B&O tax forms for our winery every month, and it is a pain. We obviously we feel like we pay too much. There's complications to the forms. There's little things here and there that we have to pay for that it would be nice to simplify the form. It'd be nice to streamline the each of the lines. But the state does have to have taxes, and so if there's an opportunity to change it, I don't think we can eliminate it unless we have sufficient revenue source from somewhere else. So as much as I'd love to eliminate it, I don't think we could. Change it, yes. How? To be honest, because I'm new to this, I don't know exactly, but I would definitely talk to experts and sit lots of comments from the populace, from the voters, and get some good ideas, and then go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Boehnke, or were you finished there?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Boehnke, question number 2, I'll repeat it again. If you had the opportunity to change the B&O tax without lowering or eliminating it, what changes would you make and why?
Well, thanks, Tracy. And as a Republican, I would fight to try to lower it. I think it's too high right now, and I believe Washington, including small business owners, are taxed too heavily in the state. So in case I can't lower it or eliminate, then I would suspend. I would look at opportunities where we can waive it during the time period to allow business owners to get on their feet. And I believe in this time of crisis that people just need a hand up, not a hand out, which is a big difference, to where we can give them a little bit of relief now that allows them to get back into the economy, to reopen safely, and to be more effective and efficient. Then you'll start seeing the taxes come back and the discounted rates that we can look toward on that as well. I'd also look at options at the local level. I don't like having a big government at the state level managing and monitoring these, because we've already seen what happened with the unemployment issues of the Nigerian cyber hack that have been affected myself and many of people in the Tri-Cities. I'd also offer 0 or low interest loans that have been administered through the local Chamber of Commerce to allow businesses to work within our chamber to manage those loans and manage that effectiveness to, again, get people back up on their feet and reopen our economy as soon as possible. Once we're reopened, you can see smiles on people's faces, positive people come back, and we start living like Americans again. And I believe we need that shot in the arm, a little bit more positive, because you mentioned in the first question, we've been hit a lot by a lot of things in the last 6 months. We need to get a lot more positive. We need to get people back together. We need to reopen this economy.
Thank you, Mr. Boehnke. You will go first on question number 3. And that is, there are discussions about imposing new statewide taxes such as road usage charges, a capital gains income tax, a Seattle-based payroll tax, a tax to pay for childcare, wildfire prevention and response tax, and a carbon tax. Do you support any of these taxes? Why or why not?
No, on most of those, if not all of those. I do have an opportunity to look at being the ranking on Energy and the Environment Committee. We've discussed a carbon tax as well as a cap and trade tax to add to one of your things, as well as transportation. We've been discussing a road usage charge, and that's where there is some kind of leeway that we can look at collaborations where looking at citizens who've discussed this with me say, if we can give up some relief on the gas tax, they'll be okay with that, supplementing that or even replacing that with the road usage charge. Now that we see automation and the new technologies we see in our environment and our society moving forward, I believe we're at a crossroads where we're starting to eliminate a lot of the gas vehicles, and that we're going to more battery operated or electronic versions of that. And that's where I think we're going to be seeing a transition to road usage. I'm not big into any taxes, just to be clear again. And seeing this, I see this as a big spending problem and not a revenue issue. The last 2 legislative sessions, we've had $2.4 up to $6 billion in excess revenue came in, and so we had a surplus in our rainy day fund. And it was up to the Democrats to agree with us to put that in that rainy day fund for times like this. They went ahead and spent that. They went ahead and utilized that and then leveraged additional priorities that we didn't agree with. And this is where that money should have been when we have this rainy day, and it's been pouring the last 5 months.
Thank you, Mr. Boehnke. Mr. Stanley, question number 3 is, there are discussions about imposing new statewide taxes such as roads usage charge, a capital gains income tax, a Seattle-based payroll tax, a tax to pay for childcare, wildfire prevention and response tax, and a carbon tax. Do you support any of these taxes? Why or why not?
Obviously, taxing is unpopular, and I would not be for raising taxes in general, but especially to alleviate some other taxes, and if we could gain something like a universal basic income, I would be willing to raise some taxes, specifically capital gains. Small amount there, and either a carbon tax or a cap and trade system, and something to bring our carbon output in line, and to bring that down for obviously climate change reasons, because that's a cost that is baked into our natural system. And people are not, companies are not paying for it. So as far as the rest of it, road usage, I understand the behind that. Maybe there's a way of gathering taxes to help the transportation better than a road usage. I'm thinking of maybe within the manufacturing of the batteries, like a VAT of some kind. There's a lot of possibilities, but in general, I don't want to raise taxes. Only if there's the benefit outweighs the pain.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. And Mr. Stanley, you will go first on the final question today. Mr. Stanley, do you see the benefits of career-focused education and skills training programs? And if so, how do you believe the legislature can best support them?
Excuse me. As far as I think the best way that we can build up the training programs, really, that is a big gap. If you want to look at countries in Europe, like Germany, they have a huge percentage of their population that goes through training programs that for skills that are like plumbers and all kinds of different things that are going to be resistant to the coming automation changes in our economy. So I would suggest, and there's a shortage in, some of the people I know in unions and trades, we do need trade schools. So I would suggest funding and trying to create more programs to focus on the actual jobs of the future and not the jobs of the past, because I think a lot of the problem with our education system is we behind the curve when it comes to training for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Boehnke, final question for you today. Do you see the benefits of career-focused education and skills training programs? And if so, how do you believe the legislature can best support them?
And thanks, Tracy. As you know, I I'm a college professor, so I see the benefits every day to lifting up a lot of individuals. And I believe it's a great equalizer, whether you come from a rich family or a poor family, disadvantaged or a minority. When you have an education, it brings pride into yourself, into your family, and the pride that you can then see in people's eyes, a smile, a skip in their step. When people go out in the world, they have the confidence to be a part of our community, and then they give back to our community and our state. And that's what I believe, that career-focused education, but bringing the skills to that, whether it's women in technology, women in cyber, disadvantaged youth that are going into these skills areas, we can build on that with several different locations, whether it's the trades, building the partnerships with WSU Tri-Cities, and also with Columbia Basin College. We have a lot of the different areas that you have options for individuals to go into, they can look up, and be a lot affordable. Most people look at a 4-year degree and say that's the way to go. I have 2 sons. One of them went 4-year degrees, already on its going to his master's. The other one says, nope, I want to go out to put my hands dirty and roll up my sleeves and get to work. And he did. And both are successful. And what we got to get away from is children in these days think that if I don't go to college, I'm not going to be successful. We need to reach out to each and every one of us during this time of crisis. And we do have a mental health issue with our youth, that we can bring them up, get them educated, and then get them out in the workforce to have that confidence, that willing to go out there, be positive, and be a positive impact on our community. And I believe we can all agree that we need a little bit more positive impact across the globe and around our nation and even around our state after the last couple months that we've been living through.
All right, Mr. Boehnke, thank you so much. Mr. Stanley, thank you so much. Now it is time for closing statements. Remember, each of you get 1 minute. We'll do it backwards from the beginning. Mr. Stanley, you will go first.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Matt. The reason that I jumped into this race was really to give another option for our voters here in Richland, Kennewick, and West Richland, that we need another option, both as instead of just one person at the incumbent, we need a challenger. We also need another party. I'm running under the Alliance Party instead of Democrat or Republican. And if you're like me and want another choice, this is a good way to show it to everybody in the political world. So I am running on a shoestring budget, and I would welcome your support, both as of voting and getting out the word. Thank you again for this opportunity to the chamber, and I hope everyone has a good rest of the month.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Boehnke, and remember, you have 1 minute for closing statements.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks, Larry, and to the Tri-City Chamber for today's forum. To the citizens who joined us today and will view this later, I humbly ask for your vote. An endorsement for me is an endorsement for an experienced leader that we need to make the mighty eight the best it can be. I believe America is truly at a crossroads. We have a lot of important issues facing our country, our state, and our district today. COVID-19 has impacted our lives and will continue to impact our safety, our society, and our economy, and truly our families from this day forward. The list is long, whether it's economic, education, energy. The experience is needed for a long-term resident in the 8th District, a retired senior military officer, local businessman, and cyber expert to jump into this field and take the lead is more important now than ever. We need to bring back the core values that I was taught as my parents and raised me and supported me throughout my military experience. We need to find common ground to work with other community leaders to find solutions. Those solutions that we want to have a bright future. Let's make the 8th District the best it can be. Get out and vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boehnke. And again, thank you both for taking the time to be a part of this today, the Tri-City Regional Chamber's 2020 Candidate Forum. Of course, you two are running for Washington State House of Representatives, 8th Legislative District, Position 2. So as we begin the countdown to Election Day coming up on November 3rd, please remind your friends, your neighbors, everybody to vote and to watch this video. You can find this and all the other candidate videos on www.tricityregionalchamber.com. chamber.com. Again, thank you to the Chamber for putting this on, KNDU, the candidates, and the sponsors, Cascade Natural Gas, Gisa Credit Union, JLH Group, and Hayden Homes, and especially to all of you for voting and watching. This is Tracy Dial. Don't forget to vote.